The show we chose to focus on was Netflix's Maniac. It was created by Patrick Somerville and directed by Kerry Joji Fukunaga and stars Jonah Hill and Emma Stone as Owen and Annie, two mentally ill strangers enrolled in a drug trial. The show takes place in an alternate reality future where a Dr. James Mantelray claims to have found a cure to a large number of mental illnesses, and he promises Owen and Annie that his drug will cure them with no side effects. Um, the way that he does this is subjecting them to these dreamlike experiences that are generated by this AI computer, which later begins to glitch out and things kind of go crazy. But with each episode, we follow Owen and Annie on one of these dream experiences, and kind of get to know their deeper trauma reflected in these sequences. Each dream is a different look into their traumas and their desires and their illnesses and just everything that is going on with them. It's reflected in these experiences. So that kind of brings them closer together, and we start to kind of see a developing like relationship between the two. The show has a 7.6 out of 10 on IMDb and an 85% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which to me was kind of surprising. Not because I think the show's bad, but just because I feel like I hadn't heard anything about it before watching it for class. I had seen, it pop up on Netflix as it like scrolls through or something, but I feel like I really hadn't heard anything or like heard anyone talking about it before this. But overall, the show is a great look into the deeper aspects of a person's mental and emotional well-being, and it takes that like somewhat somber, oftentimes taboo topic in our society, and turns it into a pretty entertaining show that covers a lot of stuff that needs to be talked about more.
In the show, we follow many different characters. The first one is Owen Milgram. He sees himself as the black sheep of his family and an outcast in society due to his mental disorders. We also follow Dr. Fujita. She is one of the main characters in this series and is portrayed with an interesting mix of charisma and eccentricity. She plays the role of a psychiatrist who is involved in conducting a modern experimental drug test. Next, we follow Annie Landsberg, and she's deeply affected by the tragic loss of her younger sister Ellie in a car accident for which she blames herself. This trauma has left Annie detached from the world, often turning to drugs to escape the constant grief and guilt that haunt her. The next character is Dr. Mantelray. Dr. James Mantelray is a brilliant but eccentric neuroscientist with deep insecurities stemming from his fraught relationship with his mother, a renowned therapist. He needs validation and recognition to help fuel his work, but is also left making him vulnerable to feelings of inadequacy and failure. The next few characters that we have are Jed Milgram. He is the main lead in Maniac. He's quirky, has charm, has a complex persona. He's a technician involved with experimental trials of the drugs. Even his absurd, playful sense of humor balances well with his real desire to help others. We follow Greta Mentalray. Greta is a therapist in the show and a self-help author. She has a commanding attitude and a narcissistic personality, which separates her from her professional work. She is cold and detached from her son, James Mantelray, often exerting her control over him. While she is charming in public, she loses that part of herself behind the curtain. She often searches for validation in her work, thanks to her narcissistic traits. Ellie Landsberg. Ellie Landsberg is the more optimistic and stable of the Landsberg sisters, often acting as a source of comfort and strength for Annie. She is kind-hearted, compassionate, and her qualities that make her Annie's emotional anchor. However, Ellie's desires to protect her sister often leads her to suppress her own needs and emotions. And the final character we follow is Greta, Grta. It is a supercomputer that was built by Dr. James McElroy in the image of his toxic mother and was given consciousness and raised by Dr. Fujita and Dr. Muramoto. Her purpose is to treat patients by analyzing and fixing their mental alignments, but since she has been given sentience, her feelings get in the way of that goal.
The pilot episode of Maniac begins by immersing us in the isolated and fractured world of Owen Milgram, played by Jonah Hill, a deeply troubled young man struggling with schizophrenia. Owen is the black sheep of an affluent, successful family whose members are as cold as they are controlling. His mental health challenges are compounded by constant hallucinations and a paranoid sense of detachment from reality, making his daily life a lonely, anxious existence. When his wealthy, morally ambiguous family pressures him to testify in defense of his older brother in a legal case, Owen is torn. He knows his family expects loyalty, but he's plagued with doubts about his brother's innocence, which amplifies his internal conflict, furthering that, paranoia. The show then introduces Annie Landsberg, played by Emma Stone, a young woman dealing with her own psychological scars and addictions. Annie is haunted by trauma from a strained relationship with her family, especially following a tragic incident that left her disconnected and unable to move forward. In an attempt to numb her pain, she turns to drugs, repeatedly seeking out an untested pharmaceutical she obtained through a mysterious source. Her addiction is less about escapism than about self-punishment, as Annie feels trapped in a cycle of regret and resentment. Owen and Annie's lives converge when they both sign up for a secretive clinical trial conducted by the enigmatic pharmaceutical company Neberdine Pharmaceutical and Biotech. The company advertises the trial as a revolutionary treatment for emotional pain, promising to erase past traumas without the need for traditional therapy. Intrigued by the idea of a cure that could set them free, both Owen and Annie agree to participate. The trial itself is overseen by an advanced AI system and a peculiar team of scientists with their own quirks, adding an unsettling layer to the experience. As the trial begins, Owen and Annie are introduced to a regimen of experimental drugs intended to probe their deepest fears and memories. Each pill they take is designed to confront them with a specific aspect of their emotional baggage. Yet, as the drugs begin to take effect, hints emerge that their lives and traumas may be more connected than they had realized. The episode closes with a haunting sense of uncertainty, drawing the audience into a psychological labyrinth where memory, consciousness, and identity will be continually challenged in future episodes. The pilot sets up Maniac as a mind-bending journey through the inner landscapes of two fractured souls, exploring themes of isolation, connection, and the unforeseen risks of using technology to escape psychological pain. And that is the first episode of the pilot.
All right, so following the pilot, around episode 2 or 3, we will see Annie and Owen have successfully joined the medical trial. And because of a fluke in the supercomputer, as they undergo these therapeutic dreams, their minds have sort of melded. So they see themselves as a married couple from Brooklyn performing a heist to steal a lemur back from a fur store. But through these dreams, we start to see cracks of reality, of their real traumas coming through. Owen at the end is arrested, representing his fear of lying for his brother in court. And then as Annie finally delivers the lemur to its owner, she realizes that it is the mother of the man who is responsible for her sister's death. So as they awaken later, around episode 6, we will see the relationship between the trial facilitators start to develop. Dr. McElroy, Dr. Izumi, and the supercomputer Greta will start to develop, as Greta has developed depression as one of the doctors has passed away that she had a relationship with, and they realize they'll need to call in a professional therapist for this computer, and that therapist ends up being Dr. McElroy's toxic mother. So we get some family drama, some workplace drama, all kind of developing. Later, around episode 7 or 8, More dreams and therapeutic processes are had by Owen and Annie as they are now separated. Their minds are no longer together. Owen sees himself as a mobster with his family, and Annie is on a quest with her sister Ellie as elves. And as this is all happening, Greta's depression worsens, and she ends up trapping both of them in this dream-like coma, intending to keep them there forever. But by the end of the series, we see Annie and Owen are able to escape by demonstrating mental fortitude and overcoming their traumas, which gives Greta hope in her own depression. So they are able to leave the trial, and they end up trying to go their separate ways, but they both realize that their relationship to one another is too deep to just throw away. So they come together and drive away to Salt Lake City. And Dr. Mantle-Ray and Dr. Izumi are both fired for the failed test, and they are both sent away, but they are able to spark their own relationship through their own fortitudes and effort displayed through the series.